my starter. And here's my trigger lineup. Got 4 heals, 8 crits, and 4 draw sentinels.
So, no fronts.
No fronts.
Why no fronts?
I don't play fronts because the grade 3 Chesley, she has it at the end of her battle skill, so she cannot add fronts to the front row for the 2 new units she calls.
Okay. Would you do any crit sense at all? I noticed you play just 4 draw sense, but just curious to see if you mix that up.
I'd probably try running 2-2, but I don't think I'd go any more than that because you kind of need the draws to get your pieces.
Okay, so let's move on to grade 1 ratios.
Okay. Play 1 of her. Play 3 Edith. Play 4 Abigail.
4 Abigail.
And 3 Beverly.
Okay, so which ones are power givers and which ones do effects?
Nightmare Doll Beverly is a power giver, and Edith also gives you some power to herself only.
So what does the 1 of do?
The 1 of, when your Vanguard is placed, that is a workeroid, you can call it to rearguard circle from soul.
Oh, that's not bad.
And it's a hard once per turn, so that's why I only run it at 1.
But you can tuck her back in and stuff.
Yep, you can
Okay.
put her back in soul.
Okay, so grade 2s then?
Yep. For her.
For the brand new girl?
Yep, for the brand new one for sure. Never want to play any less than 4.
Okay.
3 Amaroth, 2 Ellen, and 2 Jumping Jill.
So would you change anything about those 2 ofs or, bump up an Amaranth or anything like that? Or trade Amaranths for Ellens by chance? Just curious.
I wouldn't bump up Amaranth Beast Tamer at all, but
Is there a tech card you've just barely missed a cut with?
you could, instead of running Ellen, which is she's the most likely cut I would make because she takes a counterblast. You could run 2 of her instead.
Rhonda.
Yeah, 2 Rhonda instead because she just gives you another power unit.
I used to play her and I really liked Rhonda in general because usually you just had a whole board full of Nightmare Dolls and she just became naturally big.
Yeah, she does.
So, okay. And then let's get to the heart of the grade 3s here.
Part of the grade 3s. So I got 3 Alice,
All right, nice arts.
4 Chesley.
Brand new girl.
Yep. And the most
4
important
Carroll.
card, 4 Carroll.
Okay. Good ratios. Would you bump Alice at all? The 4 just to see her? Just curious.
You could bump Alice to 4. If you wanted to do that, I would definitely take out an Ellen. But really, the deck is so counterblast heavy right now, I just keep her at 3.
Would you play like Comicality Chimera, which is that grade 3 that counter charges for soul charging something in?
Yeah, you could run Comicality if you wanted to. If I was going to run Comicality, I'd probably cut Alice and Ellen by 1 to run 2 copies of them.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about Chelsea. What does she add to this new version of Nightmare Dolls? Just curious.
Okay, so Chelsea, well, first off, when she attacks, at the end of the battle, she attacks if she's on rearguard circle. She puts herself into the soul, and you put one of your opponent's rearguards in the soul. So she lets you activate Carroll's rewrite ability without using any resource to put her in the soul.
No, counterblast, not a soul charge, nothing, but it's just absolutely
Nothing.
free to take advantage of that.
It's free, and it just gives you a soul, plus it lets you get rid of an intercept or a problematic card on your opponent's field that you don't want to see.
Your previous means without using Amaranth was pretty much Ellen and Alice, which both were counterblasts. And then you had to spend another one on Carroll, which, now that kind of play becomes just 1 versus 2 now.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Well, you also had Comicality, but the problem with him is that if you ride him, if you have to ride him, you're always going to lose.
Terrible card to ride.
Yeah, at least with Chesley, at least you have her secondary Vanguard skill that when she's on Vanguard Circle, at the end of the battle she attacked, you can counterblast and call 2 workeroids to rearguard circle. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, they both get power 10k. So at the very least, if you brick ride and don't get Carroll and you get Chesley, you can still get 2 extra attacks with a possible 10k each.
Okay, so what do the other new cards add to this deck versus, what is the grade 2 and the new grade 1 add to this deck that it didn't have before?
Okay. The grade 1 is pretty important. I wouldn't say it's as important as the grade 2. But it does give you a counter charge at the end of your turn. And if you ride at the end of your combo, when you ride Chesley, it does let you you retire it and you counter charge, and then you get to put the Carroll back into your hand. So you'll have your Carroll ride for next turn.
Built-in counter charge, that's pretty important.
Yeah, it is. That's the most important thing. So you can just call as many of these as you can and just counter charge a lot.
Is there a skill not once per turn?
No.
Jeez.
Not once per turn.
That's really
Just
solid.
let you counter charge and return. Your Vanguard has to be a workeroid, but I only play Amaroth as the only non-workeroid in my deck.
It's always going to proc.
Yeah, it's always going to proc, and unless you're playing Comicality, but if you ride him, you're just going to, yeah.
So it's like the main combo.
Yeah, it's like the main combo. And then how I play it is, I always want to ride her for my first ride because she gets the free soul charge on Vanguard Circle, and you're just going to call her out of soul once you get grade 3.
Okay.
So you might as well put her in soul where she's safe and get the free soul charge.
Is there any tips to comboing with this deck? Because I used to play this deck myself, and it was very hard and very intensive to play. Is there anything you would tell new people that kind of want to try this out if they buy like a cheap clan split from the clan selection too?
Yeah, I can tell you some stuff. So one of the biggest things for comboing that you want to make sure you do or try to do is just try not to call over stuff so much. I mean, it's kind of hard to build your columns, but when you're building your columns, try to make them where you're not going to have to call over stuff because you're going to get the max plussing. And with cards like Chesley, it makes the deck a lot more easier for newcomers to get into because she just goes off the field after she attacks. So you don't even have to worry about calling over stuff as much anymore.
Versus like calling, it's a tough balance of always trying to tuck stuff in and try not to tuck stuff, like play stuff over mainly. It's very tricky.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky to get the hang of. Once you get the hang of it, you're gonna get a lot of Vanguard attacks and a lot of rearguard attacks. But just one of the things you want to make sure you do is just
abuse Carroll.
Just abuse Carroll. And if you know what deck you're going up against with Carroll is like one of the best filters in V series. So you can just filter through almost your whole deck and just get what you want. So like on the last round, I was going against a deck that just kills Vanguard in one hit. So I just used Carroll to try to get my Sentinels and just draw into them in my hand. And it worked out for me on the game, so.
So were there any matchups that really worked for you well or worked for you terribly today?
Definitely the last matchup worked pretty terribly for me because they only gave me 1 to 2 counterblasts a turn, and the first game I didn't see her. So if you're playing with 1 to 2 counterblasts a turn, you're probably just going to want to ride Chesley and not even ride Carroll. Or if you have 1 counterblast, you can also do Carroll and go into Alice after Carroll because Alice calls a workeroid for free on Vanguard Circle. So she does get you that extra attack, and then the one she calls also gets 5k.
The attacks aren't very big, but that's not the matter of it. It's just the fact that the deck can attack a lot for just so little.
It can attack a lot for a little, and I mean, if your opponent goes into it playing you thinking, oh, these attacks ain't going to be that big, I can just no guard them and hope to hit a defensive. Well, that's where she's going to come in. Because when Beverly, you want to put her behind your Vanguard. Because when she's behind your Vanguard, every time your Vanguard is placed, it's going to get 5k. So even if they hit a defensive, you can just swing Vanguard for 1 to pass like 3 times. And that's the main reason why I run 8 crit, because if you're swinging for a 1 to pass like 3 or 4 times, and they slip up one time and just say no guard, and you hit that crit and win, I mean,
Most of the time your opponent's gonna want to stop at 4 damage and stop taking damage around then, and because they know that trigger shuts off your turn, right? But playing crits opens up to the fact that they say no guard and take your Vanguard attack, and you hit a crit, game's over now.
yeah, exactly. Especially on the early turns with this deck, because when your opponent catches on to what your deck does, they're going to want to no pass your grade 1 turn. They're going to want to no pass your grade 2 turn if they can do it. And if you hit a crit on your grade 1 or 2 turn and put them up to 2 basically for free, then they're just in a worse position overall.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing this with us. This is your first place list here at Locals today. It was smaller locals, of course, but you really proved a lot of people wrong today with this deck, and you really outworked and outgrinded. So many kudos for you. And what is your name?
Zack.
Zack. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you. This is Dylan with Checkmate Vanguard, and this is Zack with Nightmare Dolls, and we will see you all later.
Thanks for watching Checkmate Vanguard. Consider subscribing and liking the video, and look forward to more matches from us.